There's a version of your life you've never lived. Not because it wasn't possible, not because you weren't capable, but because somewhere along the way, you started making decisions based on what other people would think of them. Think about that for a second. How many things have you not done because of someone else's imaginary reaction? The business you didn't start, the outfit you put back on the rack, the opinion you swallowed in a room full of people, the dream you kept quiet because you didn't want to seem arrogant, or delusional, or naive. All of that, gone, before it even had a chance. And the person who stopped it wasn't your competition, wasn't your circumstances. It was the voice in your head that said, "What will they think?" Here's something that should genuinely disturb you. Researchers at Cornell University asked elderly people in the final chapters of their lives, what they regretted most. And the number one answer wasn't the things they did. It was the things they didn't do, the risks they didn't take, the paths they didn't walk down, the versions of themselves they never gave themselves permission to become. And almost every single one of those regrets had fear of judgment somewhere underneath it. Not fear of failure, fear of what someone would say about the failure. Not fear of being different, fear of being seen as different. We are wired, literally biologically wired, to care about what other people think of us. Back when we lived in tribes, being cast out meant death. Social rejection wasn't embarrassing, it was a death sentence. So your brain learned to protect you from it. But here's the problem. You are not in a tribe anymore. The people scrolling past your post are not going to leave you to die in the wilderness. The colleague who disagrees with your idea is not going to exile you from the village. The threat is gone, but the fear stayed, and it has been running your life ever since. So what actually happens when you stop? Not reduce it, not manage it, actually stop. I want you to imagine waking up tomorrow and genuinely not caring. Not in an aggressive way, not in a "I don't care about anyone" way, but in the quiet, grounded, deeply free way that some people carry themselves, and you can feel it the moment they walk into a room. You say what you actually think in conversations, not the safe version, the real one. And something strange happens. People respect you more, not less, because confidence, real confidence, is magnetic. And people can feel the difference between someone who is performing for the room and someone who is just themselves. You wear what you want to wear. You pursue what you actually want to pursue. You stop editing your personality depending on who's watching. And slowly, the life you've been building starts to look less like a highlight reel designed for other people, and more like something that actually belongs to you. There's a psychological concept called the spotlight effect. It was studied by Thomas Gilovich at Cornell, and what he found was remarkable. People consistently believe they are being noticed, watched, and judged far more than they actually are. In one study, participants were asked to walk into a room wearing an embarrassing t-shirt. They estimated that roughly half the people in the room would notice and remember it. The real number? Less than a quarter. And even those who noticed barely gave it a second thought. Here is the brutal, liberating truth. Most people are not thinking about you. They are thinking about themselves, their own problems, their own insecurities, their own version of the same fear you have right now. The audience you've been performing for was never really watching.
Now let's talk about the people who are watching. The ones who do have opinions about your life. Because they exist, and pretending they don't is naive. There will always be someone who thinks you're too much, too loud, too ambitious, too different, too confident, too sensitive, too serious, too relaxed. You cannot win that game. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the game has no winning condition. The moment you shrink to fit one person's comfort zone, you become too small for someone else. The moment you expand and grow, someone else feels threatened by it. You will never be the right amount for everyone. So the only logical conclusion, the only sane response, is to stop trying to be. And start being the right amount for yourself. I want to tell you about two types of people. The first type lives their whole life inside a carefully managed perception. Every post is curated. Every opinion is tested before it's shared. Every move is run through the filter of, how will this look? And from the outside, it often looks fine, comfortable even. But on the inside, there is a constant low-level exhaustion, the kind that doesn't go away with sleep. Because it's not physical tiredness. It's the tiredness of never, ever fully being yourself. The second type made a decision at some point, maybe after a breakdown, maybe after a loss, maybe just after a quiet moment alone where they finally got honest with themselves. And that decision was this: I would rather be rejected for who I am than accepted for who I'm not. And from that moment, something shifted. Not overnight, not perfectly, but gradually, everything in their life started to align. The relationships got realer, the work got more meaningful, the risks got easier to take, because they stopped asking for permission to be themselves. That second person exists. You've probably met one, and you can feel the difference. Here's the part nobody talks about. Letting go of what people think isn't just about confidence. It is one of the most practical things you can do for your future, because every decision you've ever made to play it safe, to stay quiet, to not go for the thing, that decision had a cost. Not just emotionally, practically. The business not started, the salary not negotiated, the conversation not had, the opportunity not taken. All of it adds up. And 10 years from now, when you look back, the regrets won't be the moments you tried and failed. They'll be the moments you didn't try at all, because you were too busy wondering what someone, somewhere, might think about it. So how do you actually do this? Because just stop caring is the kind of advice that sounds good and helps nobody. It starts with a question. Whose voice is it? When you hear that internal critic say, "Don't do that, what will people think?" Whose voice is it actually? A parent? A teacher? Someone who criticized you years ago and doesn't even remember it? Most of the time, the opinions we're afraid of aren't even current. They're echoes. Old recordings on a loop from people who may not even be in our lives anymore. So identify the voice, then question it. Is this actually true? Or is it just a story I've been telling myself so long it started to feel like fact? Then start taking small risks, publicly. Say the opinion, post the thing, start the project, wear the outfit. Because every time you do it and survive, every time the world doesn't end, you build evidence. Evidence that the fear was lying. Evidence that your life is better on the other side of not caring. I want to leave you with this. Somewhere out there, not far from where you are right now, is a version of your life that looks radically different. Not because you got lucky, not because everything went perfectly, but because you stopped asking for permission. You stopped waiting for the approval that was never coming. You stopped shrinking. You stopped editing. You stopped performing. And you just lived. Fully. Loudly. Unapologetically. And the people worth keeping in your life? They didn't leave. They leaned in. Because there is nothing more compelling in this world than a person who has fully decided to be themselves. That person can be you. It starts the moment you decide that your life is too short and too precious to be lived for an audience. So what are you waiting for? What are you still holding back? And more importantly, who told you that you had to?